I'm Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group, the original timeshare cancellation expert. And I'm here to tell you that there is a way out. All you need to do is give my office a call. I will send you a timeshare exit information kit absolutely free, explaining how the timeshare industry works and your options for cancellation.
Call Wesley now for your free info kit. 800-969-7766. That's 800-969-7766.
Paid for by Wesley Financial Group.
My name is Dale Pazinski. I volunteer with United Way to help the homeless in my community learn computer skills and build a basic resume. I don't just wear the shirt, I live it.
Give, advocate, volunteer, Live United. Go to liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
This is the Money Matters Radio Network. WBNW 1120 AM and W275CM FM. Concord, Boston. The Money Matters Radio Network.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
New Englanders love the Caribbean, and now there's a Caribbean travel channel available for you to learn all about Caribbean culture while you're planning your next trip to your favorite island. The TravelShareIt.com marketplace is loaded with information about the arts, festivals, food, and music throughout the Caribbean, and is an interactive website featuring daily travel deals to any island of your choice. Book your next Caribbean vacation on the most comprehensive travel channel for the islands, TravelShareIt.com. That's TravelShareIt.com.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
As a busy mom, my to-do list is full.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
Visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
Did you outgrow your timeshare and now you want out? But you can't. You can't sell it, and you can't get out of the contract. Imagine trying to get out of your mortgage. That's what a timeshare is. You can't just call up the bank and say, I don't want to pay it anymore. But we may be able to help you do just that. Listen, a timeshare maybe for you once was a great thing, but now you don't use it much. And they are not easy to get rid of. Plus, you do have to pay for it every month. Qualified timeshare owners can get out of their contract legally and permanently without ruining your credit or even filing bankruptcy. And imagine, no more mortgage payment or fees. Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline qualification line now. It's free to learn more.
800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. That's 800-455-7967. Paid for by Timeshare Defense.
This is Tucker Silva of the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with your Financial Exchange quick tip of the day. And today we're talking about your brand new guide, Todd, how to leave assets to your beneficiaries. Todd, how can you ensure that your kids' inheritance can be protected from future divorces?
Well, estate planning, as you know, does things like avoid probate, protect assets from nursing homes, and reduce taxes. But you know what? The family behind the estate plan can be more important. And so the trusts live on after you die, and you can have language in there that divides the assets to the children, but doesn't just pay it out, right? It holds it in trust for them and allows them to be trustee, but just not take it. In order to get it, they have an independent trustee that can say yes or no. And that way, by not owning the asset, if they get divorced down the line after you're dead, and the other side says, hey, I want half of what's in that trust, you're going to say, that's great, but you have to ask the independent trustee. So it's now not going to be available to you. And more than just the ability to say no, it's the fact that you don't own it. So if you don't own it, it's not a marital asset to begin with, so it should not be even subject to the divorce. So learning how your trust works after you die can oftentimes be more important than when you're living. And it does more for you after you die than when you're living sometimes.
The estate planning experts at Cushing & Dolan have been helping families like yours for more than 30 years, and they've written a brand new guide called How to Leave Assets to Your Beneficiaries. To get your free copy of this comprehensive guide that will help you determine the best way to leave assets to your family, simply call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699, or you can request it from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong.
Chuck, Mike, and Tucker with you here the day after the tariff announcement that came a little bit after 4 p.m. yesterday. And markets are not in a very good spot, I think is the nice way of putting it. They're not in a free fall. I think maybe I'm just conditioned by what I saw back in 2020 in March, where, you know, look, we saw some of the worst days that we've ever seen in stock market history then. And this one, while bad, with the S&P 500 currently down about 3 3/4%, or about 200 points. The Dow is off about 1,400 points. NASDAQ off almost 5%, 830 points. I don't know why, but this feels a little bit more orderly to me. And perhaps, Mike, it's just, I know that we're going to talk about the tariffs. I know that's all that everyone wants to hear about. But I just have to talk about what I'm seeing in this market right now because, you know, on days where, like, people are, like, really nervous, every single thing gets sold. Yep. Like, you have days where, like, 499 out of the 500 S&P 500 companies, or I think it's 505 now, are down, and, like, one thing is up or, like, 3 things are up. Today, you actually have about 100 stocks that are in positive territory. Now, they're in the places that everyone likes to hide out during recessions. They're in consumer staples like Coke and Pepsi, which are up a couple percent. They're in telecoms like Verizon and AT&T that are up a couple percent. They're in healthcare like United Health and Johnson & Johnson up a couple percent. They're in utilities like Southern Company and Duke Energy up a couple percent. All the boring places are actually getting bid today, which is kind of interesting because it's like, okay, you know, yeah, I get that, you know, you might think that this is where you hide, but typically even, you know, recession stocks go down in a recession. You know, no one looks back and is like, man, like, those utilities really rallied in, you know, like 2008 and 2009. It's like, no, they just weren't, you know, quite as bad. So I do find this kind of interesting, just what we're seeing from the market. But let's talk about what we saw last night and get down to brass tacks on this, because it's pretty clear and pretty straightforward in terms of what we are seeing. Here's the state of play. 10% tariffs on all countries going forward beginning on April 9th. So the first thing, these, remember, we initially, before the announcement, were told that these were going to be going into place on April 3rd, immediately after. They're now going into place on April 9th. That tells me one thing, Mike, is that I expect a flurry of announcements over the next few days that countries X, Y, and Z, you know, have negotiated this and that, and we're not going to be imposing these. Yeah. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think you can rest assured that those negotiations were already happening behind closed doors, and the announcements of those negotiations likely, in my opinion, to come over the course of the next 6 days.
So that's part one. Part two, there are 57 other countries that are listed in what they're calling Annex 1 of the executive order because, again, I do find it's actually useful to read through the executive order to determine what's going on in all of this. And so they have a list of these other countries that have a greater than 10% tariff imposed on them. And these range from the EU at 20% to Japan at 24%, to Madagascar at 47%, to Vietnam at 46%, to China at 34%. Whole bunch of different countries included in there.
And so, Chuck, just to, I think, phrase these to my takeaway after having listened to the press conference, digested for a little bit, I break this out into two buckets of tariffs. There appears to be a universal 10% on every country. And subsequently, there were the 50-some-odd countries that were specifically named and subject to additional tariffs. If we're talking about negotiation, were I a betting man, I would bet that those second tariffs on those 50-some-odd countries may be negotiated down. I don't expect them to be negotiated lower than the 10% baseline that appears to be attached to every single country. But
I would agree with that.
We'll see.
And I also think there are probably some areas that are going to – it's going to be different with each country and region in terms of how the negotiations go. Now, the way that these were calculated, and the U.S. Trade Representative Office put this out. It's on the U.S. Trade Representative website right now. I'm reading from it. If you just Google U.S. Trade Representative reciprocal tariff calculations and look at the one that is from the USTR.gov site, they tell you it's basically, look, they weren't actually looking at tariff barriers and things like that, but rather they took the trade deficit with the U.S. relative to the country's exports with the U.S. and basically made the U.S. tariff rate half of that for countries that had trade deficits. So this is why when you look at some countries like Brazil that are not included on this list, it's because Brazil actually the U.S. runs a trade surplus with. And so Brazil not included here. There are plenty of countries that the U.S. actually does have trade surpluses with. It's just that in the aggregate, those surpluses are smaller than the deficits. But this is not something where the U.S. went out and said, hey, this is, the tariff rate on this country and this and that. It is purely based on the trade deficit at the time.
And we will talk about why that's important, Chuck, probably at length during this show. But the reason that, first things first that it's important is because it is both different than what President Trump stated while he was delivering his news on tariffs. The messaging that I heard was these countries impose unfair trade practices on the United States, so we're doing it back to them as reciprocation. That's actually not what these tariffs represent because for a number of reasons, some of which I don't fully understand, the government said we either can't or don't want to figure out where those actual barriers to trade are. So we're just going to take the easy path and say, okay, Vietnam, you have a trade imbalance with us, so you are going to be subject to higher tariffs than Brazil, regardless of whether or not there are actual barriers to trade that are different between those two countries.
So here's what this does. If these are all kept in place, which, again, this is an evolving situation, and we'll talk about what that means as well. But if these are all kept in place, what it's going to mean is that the average effective U.S. tariff rate after incorporating all of this in, plus what was done earlier this year, is now 22.5%. This is according to data from the Budget Lab at Yale. They do a bunch of stuff on trade policy, and so I'm largely going to be quoting from them. This is the largest tariff rate that the U.S. has employed since 1909. So it's been 116 years since the U.S. has seen tariffs this high. And quite honestly, what I will say on this, and I include myself in this discussion, none of us know for sure exactly how this is going to end up playing out because there's no one alive who has ever seen this.
And furthermore, even the greatest historians would acknowledge that the economy looks nothing like it did in 1909 today. So any of the lessons that you might have learned from 1909, Smoot-Hawley, Great Depression, a lot of this stuff being talked about today, the U.S. economy looks nothing like it did back in 1909 or 1930. So let's temper those expectations a bit as well.
Now, in terms of what this means, like the numbers there, in terms of like what it means for the U.S. economy. Again, I'm quoting here from the Budget Lab. If you want, you can go. It's right like budgetlab.yale.edu. They've got a whole thing on this. And basically what it shows is that the price level from all of these tariffs is going to rise about 2.3% in the short run. And so that works out to an average per household loss of about $3,800 in purchasing power. So basically saying, hey, the cost of these tariffs, they estimate to be nearly $4,000 per year. Again, if these are all implemented. And this is where, quite honestly, we get to the very simple conclusion, which is if these tariffs were to all stay in place,
it's recession.
I'm not allowed to say it's like 100% chance of recession, but it's almost certain that you end up with a recession if these were to stay in place for any extended period of time. And an extended period of time I would define as 2 to 3 months. We're not talking, like, these don't need to be in place for, like, years. This is, if these are in place by Mother's Day, you're starting to run into some real problems. So, again, I think the expectation is some of these are going to be negotiated away in the coming week or so. But it does raise a question, and this is, I think, the next one that we need to answer. We're going to take a break here, but the next question to answer is, okay, if some of these are negotiated away, how do businesses and households respond to the uncertainty about whether or not tariffs end up sticking around for the short term, intermediate term, or long term? So let's take a quick break, and then let's talk about that when we return.
Miss any of the show? The Financial Exchange Show podcast is available on Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Hit the subscribe button and leave us a 5-star review. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Consistently voted one of the top Caribbean destinations, the United States Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next vacation. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway, a long weekend with friends, or a family vacation, St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John have everything you need to enjoy that special time away from home. Take advantage of a variety of incredible promotions that are available right now. Go to visitusvi.com/promotions, where you'll find the details about all of these amazing experiences, including a stay at the Divi Carina Bay all-inclusive beach resort and casino on St. Croix. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Don't miss your chance to enjoy America's Caribbean paradise, the United States Virgin Islands. Head to visitusvi.com/promotions for more information and to book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com/promotions. Leaving assets to your beneficiaries is a critical piece of any estate plan. Cushing & Dolan, the experts in elder law, has written a new guide that may help ensure that your assets are protected for years to come, while helping you avoid unnecessary mistakes during your planning. As an example, the new federal estate tax exemption is nearly $14 million. That could lead to a larger inheritance for your family members, but still raises concerns. There are several strategies in this new guide that will help you learn how to make the right decisions about your distributions at the right time. Cushing & Dolan have been helping New England families for more than 30 years. Let them help you, too. Call 866-848-5699 and get their brand new guide called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. That number again is 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Retirement planning is complicated enough without having a formal budget to help you maintain your lifestyle during your later years. This is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Our new guide called How to Build a Retirement Budget was written specifically for this purpose. Our goal is to help take your financial concerns out of your retirement years. There are numerous issues to deal with when creating a retirement budget. Everything from understanding where your income will come from, to setting up a proper withdrawal strategy, to being able to remain flexible as market conditions change. This new guide offers structural guidance that may alleviate the pressures of creating your budget. You can request your copy right now by calling 800-393-4001 and ask for our new guide today. Once again, that number, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Here at the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, we are committed to all students not only attending, but succeeding at school. Your presence is powerful. Share why you attend at doe.mass.edu.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Let's talk LDL. AKA bad cholesterol. The higher your LDL cholesterol, the higher your risk of a heart attack or stroke. Your health matters. Know your number. Talk to your doctor and get your cholesterol checked. And learn how to help lower your LDL bad cholesterol. Because your health is in your hands. Find out more at heart.org/LDL.
Wall Street Watch, a full update on the market's performance to date. Weekdays at 10:30, only here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
The Financial Exchange is proud of our partnership with the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. This year's 5K is Saturday, November 8th, and registration is now open. The race has sold out each of the past 4 years, and slots will fill up quickly, so don't delay. Visit dav5k.boston and reserve your spot or join our team here at the Financial Exchange by registering under Team TFE. That's Saturday, November 8th for this year's 5K. Sign up now at dav5k.boston.
Chuck, I know we're going to try and keep this relatively high level, but some of the stuff we're going to be talking about is by its very nature technical. If folks have questions about what we're talking about, you can use the text line for the Money Matters Financial Exchange. 617-362-1385 is that text line. Again, 617-362-1385. Go ahead, Chuck.
And by the way, if you have questions beyond just what we're discussing, if you want to know, hey, how could this, potentially impact X, Y, or Z, or what do you think it means about this? Text that number too. Again, I can't guarantee that we're going to be able to answer all those questions because we don't know everything about everything. We try to know as much as we can about a lot of things, but we have not yet reached the end of the internet.
Don't tell them that, Chuck. We're supposed to know everything about everything.
I have to level with people. We only know a lot about a lot. We don't know everything about everything. And in fact, there's a lot that we only know a little about, and there's even more that we know nothing about.
Got it.
Anyways, let's talk a little bit about businesses. So one of the main points during the press conference yesterday was, hey, Donald Trump wants to bring manufacturing back to America. He had a member of the UAW that went up that was talking about, how excited he was for, manufacturing to come back to the U.S. And the question then is, okay, is manufacturing actually going to come back based on this? And so I think it's one where in the short term, there are likely still more questions than answers for manufacturers. Those questions can be answered over time, but let's say that I am Chuck's auto company, okay? And
Catchy.
I decide, I know, it's great. You can call me Chuck Auto for short. And let's say that Chuck Auto is, making half its vehicles in Canada and Mexico right now because, hey, it was cheaper for me to do so. So these tariffs on autos come into effect, which, by the way, those are in effect today.
Yep.
And so those are in effect. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, okay, I got all these additional costs that I have on vehicles. So, A, I've got to raise the price of my vehicles to begin with, just because I've got these additional costs on these vehicles that I'm importing here. So the cost of my vehicles that I'm selling goes up, which means all else being equal, I'm probably selling fewer of them right now. Because there's only if there were more people that could buy at higher prices, I'd already be charging higher prices. So I sit here and I go, okay, I've got this production that is, in Canada and Mexico. If I want to bring it back to the U.S., I got to start building a factory today in order to start producing cars 3 years from now, and it's going to cost me. I don't know. You look at the cost of these plants that are being set up. $10 to $20 billion. Let's call it, somewhere in that range in order to build a new auto factory. Am I going to today say, yes, I'm going to build a new auto factory based on what I've seen? My answer, and again, this is me role-playing this whole thing out just because I'm not actually in the heads of, any auto executives. I'm not Jim Farley. I'm not Mary Barra. I'm not, them. But am I going to take $10 billion and say, I'm going to build a new factory here in the U.S., given that a lot of these tariffs, when they've been imposed, shortly afterwards, have either been partially or entirely rescinded, and I don't know if it's going to be cost-effective for me to do that for the long term.
It's a really tough question to answer. Chuck, can I give you – I want to talk about a specific company with a specific manufacturing role here in the United States. I think you and I are both familiar with, at least, have discussed the BMW plant down in South Carolina, right?
Sure.
About 11,000 workers at that BMW plant down in Spartanburg, South Carolina. They produce a lot of SUVs there, a lot of BMW SUVs in that Spartanburg plant. Those SUVs then get exported to other countries, and a bunch of them get sold in the United States. But to be clear, they are not just making vehicles that get sold into the United States market. These things get produced and shipped all over the world.
Because it's easier to have it's easier and cheaper
Correct.
to have one factory that makes all those than separate factories everywhere making all different vehicles.
So let's take that plant for a moment here and focus in on it. To those vehicles sold in the United States, there's going to be no tariff because they are produced entirely in the United States as of today. However, we do have the hint of these new parts tariffs that are going to go into place, and I don't have the estimates from BMW on what portion of these parts come from outside, but it's a lot. So here's what's going to happen. You have a tariff going into place on the parts that go into these BMW cars. Then those cars are shipped across the globe to go be sold, let's say, in South America and Europe. And it is now, because of these tariffs, going to be more costly to manufacture that vehicle in the United States and ship it elsewhere than it would be to, say, manufacture that vehicle in Canada or in Mexico, at least for the portion of them that are going to be sold elsewhere. So for that, again, one plant, 11,000 employees in the state of South Carolina, you do have to question, okay, the result of these tariffs, is it more BMWs being manufactured in the United States? Or is it actually fewer? Because, hey, they have more capacity than the demand from U.S. buyers. What does that look like over the next few years? Because suddenly, in one specific area of one specific market, the United States isn't a terribly competitive place to manufacture that car.
So these are some of the things that businesses are going to be discussing. Beyond that, you also do have businesses that are large importers that, again, if these tariffs are in place when they get, actually implemented on April 9th, you've got some real problems. I have two buddies of mine that run businesses that are, largely import dependent from China. One of them runs a small collectibles business. The other is a board game maker. The smaller one is a sole proprietor. It's like him just, doing his thing. And the other one has, I think, 20 to 25 employees, somewhere in that ballpark. And I was curious. I'm like, hey, what's the deal on all of this? How's it going to impact you? The smaller one, who is, again, just a sole proprietor, was basically like, given the new tariffs from China and where my margins are and how I have to pay these tariffs, I'm going to have to close up shop if they stay in place. Straight up said, look, I've been able to stomach, the 20% so far, an additional 34% on top of that. I'm going to have to close up shop because my customers won't pay that extra premium. He knows them. The other one is trying to find a way to negotiate with the companies that he sells into, big national retailers and things like that. And is hoping to find a way to weather the storm, but I asked him, look, what's this going to end up costing you? He's like, it's going to be $5 million this year in tariff costs that I hadn't budgeted. And that's money that's no longer going to be profit for him because he has to pay that $5 million. So these are some of the real-world impacts we're starting to see, or that we may see. Quick break here. We got Wall Street Watch next, and then more tariff talk after this.
Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter @TFE Show. Breaking business news is always first, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Heads up, athletes, coaches, and parents. Play for life, not just points. Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, or HCM, is the leading cause of sudden cardiac death, especially in black athletes in sports like football or basketball. If you feel shortness of breath, chest pain, and fatigue, or have a family history of HCM, talk to your doctor. Don't let HCM bench you for good. Learn how to stay in the game at heart.org/HCM student athlete. Your heart, your health, your move.
Leaving assets to your beneficiaries is a critical piece of any estate plan. Cushing & Dolan, the experts in elder law, has written a new guide that may help ensure that your assets are protected for years to come, while helping you avoid unnecessary mistakes during your planning. As an example, the new federal estate tax exemption is nearly $14 million. That could lead to a larger inheritance for your family members, but still raises concerns. There are several strategies in this new guide that will help you learn how to make the right decisions about your distributions at the right time. Cushing & Dolan have been helping New England families for more than 30 years. Let them help you, too. Call 866-848-5699 and get their brand new guide called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. That number again is 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV of Massachusetts has helped me and countless others adjust to civilian life through a variety of incredible programs. Through our local Veterans Assistance Program, we provide necessary services to veterans and their communities, such as food shopping, landscaping, and companionship, but we need your support. You can help by making a donation today. Please visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
Hi, this is Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we have a guide available this month titled How to Build a Retirement Budget. Mike, one of the rules of thumb that gets tossed around is, hey, just withdraw 4% of your portfolio each year and you'll be fine. Is that true still?
It can be, but it also leads to some confusing conversations because that 4% rule, one, is dependent on a very specific asset allocation that was recommended by the person that created it. And two, a lot of those things have changed over time and doesn't really account for the fluctuations that every retiree sees, right? You might retire and not start Social Security right away, in which case your withdrawals could be higher for a period of time.
What about on the other side of the ledger when you look at expenses? A lot of people say, well, I expect my expenses to go down. Maybe I only need 70 to 80% of my pre-retirement income.
Yeah, I mean, this one makes sense, right? Like, you're right now making money. You might be putting money into your 401k, paying FICA taxes that you won't in retirement. But this one especially, I have to say, varies a lot from person to person. That's 70 to 80% of pre-retirement income. And think about it this way, right? Do I still have a mortgage? Might that mortgage get paid off at some point in my retirement? What sort of debts do I have? Am I going to downsize to one car? Are we going to need both? What sort of travel am I planning on? And so that 70 to 80% rule can be a good starting point, but really you need to start with the budget.
Our guide is titled How to Build a Retirement Budget, and the way to request it is by calling 800-393-4001. That number again is 800-393-4001 to request our latest guide, How to Build a Retirement Budget.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Time now for Wall Street Watch. A complete look at what's moving markets so far today, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Markets are selling off significantly the day after President Trump unveiled his reciprocal tariffs, as well as auto tariffs sending shockwaves across the global economy. Right now, it's pretty ugly out there. Dow is down by 3.5%. or about just 1,500 points here. S&P 500 is down nearly 4%, or 221 points. And the tech-heavy NASDAQ down nearly 5%, or 867 points. Russell 2000 selling off by 5.6%. 10-year Treasury yield down by 15 basis points and now sits at 4.04%. Crude oil down nearly 7% lower, or $66.78 a barrel. Over to big tech, taking a big hit today, where the Magnificent Seven are taking hits of anywhere between 3 and 8%. Several retailers are also seeing substantial losses in reaction to the new tariffs, specifically those who manufacture in both Vietnam and China. Nike, which manufactured about half of its footwear overseas, is seeing a loss of 13%, and Lululemon, who also sources 40% of its products in Vietnam, that stock is also down by about 13%. Target and Best Buy down anywhere between 10 and 15%, as retailers have warned tariffs will lead to price increases for their products. The companies have also been pressuring suppliers to cut prices or move production out of China. Walmart is only down by 0.5%. Discount retailers, including Dollar Tree and Five Below, also seeing losses on the day in reaction to the tariffs. There is, however, some green on the board, where investors are jumping into several consumer staple stocks, including Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Procter & Gamble, Philip Morris, among others. They are seeing gains anywhere between 1 and 2%. And oil prices, like I mentioned earlier, down by 7% after 8 key OPEC plus producers agreed to raise combined crude oil output by 411,000 barrels per day, speeding up the pace of their scheduled hikes and pushing down oil prices. I'm Tucker Silva, and that's Wall Street Watch.
Mike, where do you want to go next from a tariff perspective?
I think a little bit of discussion further on this country-by-country method and what it might mean for negotiations would be helpful here. And again, if you're just joining us, the announcement of tariffs yesterday, Liberation Day, went through at 4 p.m. We have tariffs going into place on April 5th, and then the substantial reciprocal tariffs, as they're being described, going into effect on April 9th. Just point of clarification, Chuck, what is going into place on Saturday of this week? Is it the auto tariffs that go into place, or are those already in effect?
So the auto tariffs are in effect today. I'm just going to pull the executive order just so I can have it here. Okay, here it is, the implementation. I'll quote here. Except as otherwise provided in this order, all articles imported into the customs territory of the U.S. shall be consistent with the law, subject to an additional ad valorem rate of duty of 10%. Such rates of duty shall apply with respect to goods entered for consumption on or after 12:01 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time on April 5th, 2025. So the blanket 10% goes into effect on Saturday. That happens 2 days from now. Cars are as of today. April 9th is when you have the trade partners that are specified in Annex 1 of the document, which is, those other countries that are included in there. And it's based on the trade deficit relative to the country's exports to the United States. So the best way to phrase this is, let's say that a country has a trade deficit of $20 with the U.S. And let's say they export $100 to the U.S. 20 divided by 100 is 0.2. Mm-hmm. And then what the U.S. did is they said, we're going to take half of that, and that'll be the additional tariff that we are imposing. So in that case, there would be no additional tariff because it's in line with the 10%. But for other countries, it was, it's higher because obviously that was just an example. And so you look at the EU, and the EU comes in at a 20% tariff. It's not based on how much the EU is tariffing U.S. goods. It's based on the size of the trade deficit relative to how much the EU exports to the U.S.
So, again, that piece is a little bit complicated, but is incredibly important in my mind. So, again, we're going to separate these out for a minute. 10% universal tariffs on all imports into the United States. I recognize news is reporting that some countries like North Korea and Russia don't face any of these tariffs. Guess what? They don't import anything to the United States, so probably irrelevant. So, practically speaking,
the market for North Korean imports,
pretty little.
Still small.
Yeah.
Still small.
Yeah.
I know that North Korea is working on it, but it's still very pequeño.
So that 10% piece, I don't think that we want to describe that as reciprocal, because it does not appear to be in any way reciprocal based on trade policies of other countries or how much of a trade imbalance there is. It's universal. It's a baseline 10%. That's how I'm going to describe it, is baseline 10% tariffs, probably going to be in place for most countries for a while. The reciprocal piece of all of this is also a bit problematic because it's not actually reciprocal in, I think, the way that most of us understood what the administration was talking about. When I understood reciprocal, it was we are going to target countries who have substantial barriers to trade for American goods coming into their countries. Kind of makes sense, right? Hey, Mexico, you're going to put a big tariff on American whiskey. We're going to put a big tariff on products coming back into our country. It doesn't necessarily need to be the same products because we might
avocados, we're going to tax them.
Right. That is not what we got yesterday. And so let's dive in there, Chuck, for a minute with Israel.
I'll be honest, I didn't think that's what we were going to get, though.
I thought at least the list of countries, whether the tariff percentages formatted to the amount of tariffs or not. I didn't think that piece, but I thought at least the list of countries that were going to be subject to these reciprocations were, is that a word?
Sure. It is on the financial exchange.
I thought that at least that list of countries was going to be devised from a list of bad actors, and that is very clearly not the case. And I think for evidence of that, let's go to Israel for a moment here, Chuck. Let's talk about tariffs on Israel. What are they facing, and what does trade look like between the U.S. and Israel?
So Israel is facing a 17% tariff on all goods that Israel exports to the United States.
10% baseline plus 7% reciprocal?
Yes. Well, it's 17%.
17%.
Let me see. I can't remember if this is... No, sorry. It is... I'm seeing if it's above and beyond the 10. I can't remember offhand. No, it is... It's this. So, yeah, it's in addition to... it's in addition to anything that's already been levied earlier.
Sure.
And it's, like, including other... So, like, let's say that there was an Israeli car that was manufactured and sent to the U.S., it'd be the 25% car tariff plus 17.
Sure.
But not, like, the 10 here. So, if you look at, what Israel actually exports, okay, like, what are the things that they, push out there, it's mostly technology and medical supplies. Like, that's the bulk of it. But here's the thing. The U.S. and Israel have a free trade agreement that's been in place since 1985. It's a bilateral free trade agreement. 98% of U.S. exports to Israel are exempted from tariffs. The remaining 2% raises like $10 million a year in tariffs for Israel.
So
in Israel,
safe to say that is a pretty low barrier to trade between the U.S. and Israel.
Not only is it a low barrier, yesterday before the Trump announcement, Israel announced that they were seeking to remove the remaining 2% of items that were tariffed, from U.S. exports. So this is a big reason why when we look at the numbers that are assigned here, this is one of the great examples where I think I would be absolutely shocked if we're sitting here on April 9th and this 17% tariff on Israel is still in place.
I would too, but that's the really important interpretation, because practically speaking, there is nothing Israel can do here to come up with a great new thing that they're going to do to eliminate barriers to trade. They have already done so, and we're subject to these tariffs. And so I think one interpretation would be, hey, this is going to get done away with, and they're going to maybe still face the baseline, but not face any imposed big tariffs, because guess what? There's no barriers to trade there. The other interpretation would be, what can Israel possibly do to make better trade deals with the United States right now? and get a win for the Trump administration, I don't know. And so I'm pretty open to both of those interpretations.
Right. And here's the problem, is that I think here's one of the problems. Everyone came into yesterday saying, okay, after this we're going to have certainty. We still don't.
Right.
And this is the thing, is when you're engaging in negotiations on these types of things, there's never a defined end state that you get to. And so I think that's why this is going to be kind of challenging here, and why, hey, even if some of these come off the board, which, again, I'd be shocked if some of them didn't over the next week.
Of course.
It's something where you then say, okay, if I'm a business owner who manufactures stuff, what do I do? Let's say that I'm Nike, okay, because Nike is getting pummeled today. And the reason why is, Mike, how much Nike stuff is made in the United States?
Not a whole lot, Bob.
I don't know of anything. I'm sure there's a few products here and there, but there's not much. So Nike's down 12% today. So
you want a bigger one? Smaller company, but bigger loss. Have you seen Restoration Hardware today?
45, right?
Yeah, but they reported earnings yesterday that were garbage.
Yeah, they did.
They had bad earnings yesterday. I wish I could find the quote from the CEO, but someone told him...
He had an expletive in the middle of his earnings call.
Yes.
It was the S word.
Someone told him, hey, just so you know, while we're doing this call, your stock is down 25%, and he literally goes, oh, bleep.
Correct.
So, things are kind of dodgy. That's... Some of it might be tariffs, but others are, hey, when your CEO says, oh, bleep, in the middle of the conference call in relation to...
Stock price,
it's not really going to fill you with a ton of confidence.
I'm looking at the transcript right now.
Isn't it great?
It's bad. It's really bad.
Oh, really? Oh, blank. Okay.
It's really that it's rare that you see something like that in an earnings call, but those are the ones where you wish that you were sitting on it instead of doing something else. You're like, I would just love to be sitting there hearing a CEO be like, oh, bleep, my stock's down. I love the candor. It's just it's impressive. So, getting back to these tariffs, some of them are going to go away, some of them won't. But if you're Nike, first you say, okay, I make most of my stuff in Vietnam, Thailand, China, India, Sri Lanka. Those are probably the big producers for Nike. Well, let's say that you're sitting here and you're like, okay, a week from now, maybe the tariffs on Vietnam are resolved. I don't know if they will be, but I'm hypothesizing. Let's say that those are resolved. Do I then say, okay, do I take my production from Thailand and try to move it to Vietnam? Or do I leave it there under the hope that maybe a week from now, Thailand is resolved? Do I just do nothing?
Right.
And in doing nothing, then how much does that impact my margins? Because I'm still making a boatload of stuff in Thailand that has this tariff in place. And so what do I actually do as a manufacturer? I don't know. And this is the thing that's going to be going on at every major goods producer, trying to figure out, what do we do? And I think a lot of them are going to just say, let's wait and see for a few weeks so we can see, kind of what the landscape looks like then. But the problem then is, okay, if you have all these manufacturers that don't want to invest both domestically or overseas, it just slows CapEx to a grind, to a halt. And that's, something that's potentially, this is when we talk about, hey, the damage to the economy, it's not just from the tariff, it's the uncertainty surrounding it. And so this is, again, it's a pretty dodgy time in the economy. It's not to say that, this is going to be permanent, but it's really tough, even if some of these tariffs are removed, to quickly undo the damage in confidence to businesses and or households that are saying, okay, what should I buy? Is this going to be tariffed or is it not? It's across the board that you're trying to sort through on that, and I think that's going to be a major challenge over the next couple of quarters at least. Anything else you want to note on that, Mike?
No, we got to take a break.
Okay, let's take a break. When we come back, more on this. Again, there's some days where we might hop around to 15 stories in an hour. This is going to be 8 variations on one story because this is the only thing that matters. It's it. So if you're not enjoying the tariff talk, sorry, but we're going to continue to. If you are, we got a whole lot more meat on that bone. It's juicy. We're going to chew on it for a while. Stick around. Coming up right after this.
If you missed any of today's show, catch up whenever you want on our YouTube page. Find daily show segments and full shows. Just go to youtube.com and search for The Financial Exchange. This is your home for breaking business and financial news. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Leaving assets to your beneficiaries is a critical piece of any estate plan. Cushing & Dolan, the experts in elder law, has written a new guide that may help ensure that your assets are protected for years to come, while helping you avoid unnecessary mistakes during your planning. As an example, the new federal estate tax exemption is nearly $14 million. That could lead to a larger inheritance for your family members, but still raises concerns. There are several strategies in this new guide that will help you learn how to make the right decisions about your distributions at the right time. Cushing & Dolan have been helping New England families for more than 30 years. Let them help you, too. Call 866-848-5699 and get their brand new guide called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. That number again is 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. New Englanders love the Caribbean, and now there's a Caribbean travel channel available for you to learn all about Caribbean culture while you're planning your next trip to your favorite island. The TravelShareIt.com marketplace is loaded with information about the arts, festivals, food, and music throughout the Caribbean, and is an interactive website featuring daily travel deals to any island of your choice. Book your next Caribbean vacation on the most comprehensive travel channel for the islands, TravelShareIt.com. That's TravelShareIt.com.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Retirement planning is complicated enough without having a formal budget to help you maintain your lifestyle during your later years. This is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Our new guide called How to Build a Retirement Budget was written specifically for this purpose. Our goal is to help take your financial concerns out of your retirement years. There are numerous issues to deal with when creating a retirement budget. Everything from understanding where your income will come from, to setting up a proper withdrawal strategy, to being able to remain flexible as market conditions change. This new guide offers structural guidance that may alleviate the pressures of creating your budget. You can request your copy right now by calling 800-393-4001 and ask for our new guide today. Once again, that number, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
As a busy mom to 4 kids, my to-do list is full.
Trying to fit in exercise, eating right, and prioritizing self-care can feel next to impossible.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has easy tips, tools, and information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
So to all the moms, the aunts, the grandmothers, and amazing women out there doing it all,
visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
You take care of them, Go Red for Women will take care of you.
Business and financial news affecting the markets and your wallet. We've got it all straight from Wall Street, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
All right, continuing to talk tariffs in terms of, again, like what's the potential impact here? And I think one thing that I want to tie this to is, look, what does the Trump administration want? Like, what's the goal of this? I know that, manufacturing jobs is a key thing, but, like, let's ask the question of, hey, how do you actually get there, and what are some of the stated goals that they've had? So the first one that I come back to, and this is one that Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has talked about quite a bit. He hasn't quite come out and said it exactly this way, but they want a weaker dollar. And the reason why they want a weaker dollar is pretty simple from a manufacturing perspective. If you sell stuff and your currency is expensive relative to other currencies, it's harder for you to sell those goods overseas. So a cheaper dollar means your stuff is more affordable in euro terms and yen terms and whatever it is. He specifically, Bessent has called out the yen, saying, look, I want the yen to strengthen relative to the dollar. So if we take a look at where the yen is today, just as an example, the yen has strengthened by about 2.6% relative to the dollar today. The dollar is getting hammered today, by the way, down about 2.1% right now, relative to kind of the basket of global currencies. So I do think part of this is, okay, we want to see a weaker dollar. That's what the Trump administration is saying. They're getting that. Part two, what else do they want? They want lower deficits. Well, jury's out. We're going to have to see how that ends up playing out there, because thus far, when we look at, and again, I'm just quoting the real-time data from the Brookings Institute, even with the Doge cuts and things along those lines, through, let's see what data I have. Let me just get both the dates here. Here we go. Through April 1st, the U.S. government this year spent $2.079 trillion. Last year was $1.966. So there haven't actually been lower outlays this year, despite what, Doge has been trying to do with the federal bureaucracy. So jury's out on that one. Let's punt that. Bessent wants lower long-end rates. He wants the 10-year Treasury down. He said that. He's like, look, I view my benchmark as the 10-year Treasury. I want that down. Well, it is down today. It's down to 4.019%. It's down almost 20 basis points. The problem on the 10-year is, hey, if if the economy gets too badly damaged by these tariffs, yes, it might go down further than that, but it might also be because you have a recession and a really weak economy. So you can put this in the box of, yeah, they're getting it, but are they going to be able to land this thing the way they want? Open question. Other things that they are looking for: cheaper oil. I can tell you.
Getting that in spades.
You're getting that today. Oil prices down almost 8%, some of it due to the tariff announcement, but also OPEC Plus announced today they were going to accelerate their production increases, which means it's not going to be U.S.-produced oil that's being produced at those cheaper prices. It's overseas. That's kind of one it's not in the right bucket for the administration. So you look at what they're trying to do. They're getting some of the things that they want. It's a question of, can they steer kind of the narrow the ship down the narrow strait to get where they're going? It's going to be a ride. I'll tell you. We're going to have to see. Quick break here. Hour 2 coming up in a little bit.
Retirement planning is complicated enough without having a formal budget to help you maintain your lifestyle during your later years. This is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Our new guide called How to Build a Retirement Budget was written specifically for this purpose. Our goal is to help take your financial concerns out of your retirement years. There are numerous issues to deal with when creating a retirement budget. Everything from understanding where your income will come from, to setting up a proper withdrawal strategy, to being able to remain flexible as market conditions change. This new guide offers structural guidance that may alleviate the pressures of creating your budget. You can request your copy right now by calling 800-393-4001 and ask for our new guide today. Once again, that number, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
Sometimes we know what's next. Other times, it's impossible to know. Life can change in an instant. Don't be caught standing by the next time someone's heart stops. Knowing CPR gives you the ability to act, and takes you from bystander to lifesaver. CPR is a life-saving skill. Join the nation of lifesavers today by learning CPR at heart.org/nation. National support for CPR education provided by Elevance Health Foundation.
New Englanders love the Caribbean, and now there's a Caribbean travel channel available for you to learn all about Caribbean culture while you're planning your next trip to your favorite island. The TravelShareIt.com marketplace is loaded with information about the arts, festivals, food, and music throughout the Caribbean, and is an interactive website featuring daily travel deals to any island of your choice. Book your next Caribbean vacation on the most comprehensive travel channel for the islands, TravelShareIt.com. That's TravelShareIt.com. This is the Money Matters Radio Network, WBNW 1120 AM and W275 CM FM, Concord, Boston. The Money Matters Radio Network.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Are you over the age of 50? Want peace of mind and financial security for your family? Here's an important message to you from Senior Care USA. The average funeral now costs over $10,000. That leaves your loved ones the burden of paying your debts and funeral costs. Our plans start as low as $1 per day and will pay your family up to $30,000 to help pay for your funeral and other expenses. There are no medical exams. Your rates will never increase, and your plan cannot be canceled, regardless of your medical conditions, as long as you make your premium payments. Get up to $30,000 in final expense insurance. Call now for free information. Just answer a few simple questions and get approved right over the phone in just a few minutes. Call right now.
Call 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. That's 800-378-3818. Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
Consistently voted one of the top Caribbean destinations, the United States Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next vacation. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway, a long weekend with friends, or a family vacation, St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John have everything you need to enjoy that special time away from home. Take advantage of a variety of incredible promotions that are available right now. Go to visitusvi.com/promotions, where you'll find the details about all of these amazing experiences, including a stay at the Divi Carina Bay All-Inclusive Beach Resort and Casino on St. Croix. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Don't miss your chance to enjoy America's Caribbean paradise, the United States Virgin Islands. Head to visitusvi.com/promotions for more information and to book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com/promotions.
This is Tucker Silva of the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with your Financial Exchange Quick Tip of the Day. And today we're talking about your brand new guide, Todd, how to leave assets to your beneficiaries. Todd, why can't you just add your kids to your accounts or to your house deed?
Well, you can. It's just not a good idea. So people who do that understand with an account, right, you can put a joint name on the account. Now, that doesn't actually complete the gift because because you actually have to take the money out and then the gift is complete. But when you set it up, the asset would avoid probate. But if something happens to the child, it's going to be, available. Half the asset would be subject to the children's creditor. So you don't want that. And secondly, if you only put one kid on the deed, you've likely disinherited the other kids. So it's not really good planning overall. Whereas if you put the house in the kid's name, now you've actually made a completed gift of half the house and would need to file a gift tax return. Number one. Number two, of course, it's exposed to the child's creditors and, yes, divorces. You could find yourself at some point owning half your house with an ex-in-law. Not sure that's a good way to plan. So please, put together trusts. Don't just throw names on deeds or on bank accounts because, as I always like to say, nothing good comes from giving assets away while you're living.
The estate planning experts at Cushing & Dolan have been helping families like yours for more than 30 years, and they've written a brand new guide called How to Leave Assets to Your Beneficiaries. To get your free copy of this comprehensive guide that will help you determine the best way to leave assets to your family, simply call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699, or you can request it from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong.
Chuck, Mike, and Tucker with you, kicking off the second hour of our show, and stocks are continuing to slide further as we go through the morning. The Dow is now off 1,569 points, 3.7%. The S&P is down 250 points, or 4.4%. The NASDAQ is off 1,000 points now, 5.68% down. Despite this, I know this is going to sound weird, Mike, but this is still kind of orderly. And what I mean by this is it's not just indiscriminate selling everywhere. We actually still have about 95 stocks in the S&P 500 that are up. And that's kind of remarkable on a day like this. It's also remarkable that the VIX, Wall Street's fear gauge is how it's referred to, hasn't spiked as much as you would think you would on a day like this where you've got this kind of movement. To put this in perspective, you go back to 2020 and some of the stuff that we saw then as far as the market moves during the initial outbreak of COVID-19, and you had volatility on the VIX pushing much, much higher in terms of kind of where it was being priced at that point in time. And you're just not seeing that here, which is kind of remarkable to me. I'm not saying that you would expect to see, VIX at 75 like it got to back during then. I think it actually cleared 80 for a little bit. But the fact that you're not seeing it up in the 40s or, even like mid-30s to low 40s is kind of remarkable. And it suggests that there still isn't, there's elevated fear, but it's not really much beyond what, beyond kind of like normal fear in a market like this. There's nothing suggesting that there's any kind of disproportionate fear response, and that's usually kind of what drives these things at some point. I mean, even you look at, 2022 when we got some of the selling climaxes there, the VIX was getting to 35 and change. When we had the the blow-up of the yen-carry trade last year, you were getting above 35, and you're just not seeing it here. So this is kind of, I know it's weird for me to say it's like an orderly 4% down day, because that doesn't really make sense, and it sure doesn't feel like that to people, where if you're looking at like some of the individual names and you're like, oh, gee, like that's pretty ugly. But I know it's weird to say this, but it feels like this could be a lot worse, actually, in markets.
Yeah, I do agree with you, Chuck. We haven't hit any circuit breakers for the markets as a whole. Those don't occur till the 7-ish, 7.5% on the S&P. So we haven't hit any of those. To be fair, though, we also haven't seen any companies carted off the field, right? You haven't had those announcements this morning of we are shutting down this, we are giving a bankruptcy warning. Those are the types of things that you were seeing in March of 2020 that you are not seeing right now. Good news, it's not happened yet. Bad news would be if you start to get some of those, I could see investors getting a bit more spooked if you start seeing, hedge fund or private equity or publicly traded companies coming out and saying, hey, these new moves make us do this to our profit warning. So here is our updated forecast, and we are giving a going concern warning based on all this.
Big thing if you missed it yesterday, and again, feels like it would be kind of hard to have missed it and be a listener of our show, but in the event that you didn't hear,
you fit into that narrow
yes, there's a
part of the Venn diagram.
There's a Venn diagram of people who listen to the Financial Exchange and people who don't know that tariffs were raised yesterday, and there's 3 of you in that group. But to those 3 people, Trump administration raised global 10% tariffs that are set to take effect on Saturday, April 5th. They also, for 57 additional countries, had higher tariffs anywhere from 11 to 50% that are going to go into effect on April 9th. The fact that there's a delta of 4 days there, a difference in 4 days, suggests that they're going to try to negotiate a good number of those during that time. So I think part of that might be what the market is looking at here. But you don't know like which ones are going to be negotiated. You don't know exactly how. And so it's basically... It's kind of that leap of faith of, hey, hope a lot of these end up being negotiated because, look, if these all stay in place at these rates, according to data from the Budget Lab at Yale, this will raise the average tariff rate on all imports to the U.S. to 22.5%, which would be the highest since 1909. So I've said this before, there's no one alive who's experienced this level of tariffs on U.S. imports.
No, absolutely not.
I'm sure okay, there might be a few people alive who have. They're not listening to our show.
It's not nice. There might be.
Honestly, like, you're 117 years old, do something better than listening to us.
Oh, that's not nice.
It's not nice to us.
The equity markets, as we mentioned, are in sell-off mode. S&P 500 now trading at levels last seen in September of 2024. Brings us to about an 11.5% sell-off from those all-time highs. NASDAQ, I haven't calculated, but is substantially worse on that. And some specific commentary from Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, yesterday that I just found surprising, calling out the Mag 7 in particular, Mag 7 stocks being those big high-flying tech stocks that really contributed to most market growth that we saw over the last few years.
And, again, I don't remember the last time I heard a Treasury Secretary talk about a specific stock ever.
Yeah, me either.
Other than, okay, it's 2008 and Ford, GM, and Chrysler are blowing up.
Yeah.
Hey, we got to bail these ones out. Or, hey, we've got to bail out, Citigroup, or we've got to, do something. Someone, help me sell Countrywide to Bank of America. Other than that, have you ever heard a Treasury Secretary try to talk down a specific group of stocks before?
No, that's. There's been a few firsts, and that's another one of them.
Speaking, I know we're also going to talk about tomorrow's jobs report because, we got a jobs report tomorrow. But I also, before we do that, so. There's 2 different pieces that I think are, important here in terms of the potential downside for equities. The first is just the macro picture, like, hey, how does this affect overall growth? How does this affect, spending habits and this and that? Like that's I think the first place that people look. The other place that I think is an underappreciated issue is what this does to corporate margins and how you can project where they're going to be. I'm going to pick on Apple right now just because they're down almost 9%, and it seems like the market's picking on Apple, so I'm just going to pile in. If you are Apple and you do most of your manufacturing in China, What are your margins going to be the next few quarters?
I don't know. If they face 56% tariffs or whatever the calculation comes to, it's going to be pretty rough.
Now, obviously, Tim Cook, I'm sure, is trying to, figure out some carve-out for Apple products and this and that. But let's say that you are an analyst who's covering Apple, or you're an analyst who's covering Nike, or covering Deere, whoever you might be, covering. How the heck do you build your models for what those corporate margins are going to be?
It's a pretty wide and thereby useless range, I think, is the answer.
And so the only thing that you can do then is you have to project. Is there any chance, as a result of this, corporate margins expand in the next couple quarters? No. Like in the aggregate?
Yep.
So if margins have to come
down... There could be more jobs in the U.S., there could be higher wages for workers.
Sure.
But there's almost no path for...
Margin expansion
for companies in the next 2 quarters.
Because even if you want to, let's say you are a company that says, yep, I'm going to expand my U.S. operations, it's going to cost you more money to do so in the short term.
Right.
And so if this is the case, right now it feels like people are just looking at the macro side of things. What does this do to corporate earnings for the next couple quarters? And it's, again, we've talked about some of these are going to come off the board. Like the expectation that I think almost everyone has, hey, not all of these are going to be in place when April 9th rolls around. But you don't know which ones, and it's not like they're all going to come off the board. Like, do you think you're going to get 57 different bilateral trade agreements signed in a week?
No, seems unlikely.
I don't. I couldn't even do one. But again, I'm not being asked.
I wouldn't be surprised by a dozen. To be clear, if you missed the first part of our show today, the larger tariffs on 57 countries do not go into effect until the 9th. It is the 9th of April, 6 days from now. It is my expectation, it sounds like Chuck's expectation, that there are going to be a slew of announcements on these tariffs of countries who were either already negotiating with the Trump administration behind closed doors, and those new negotiations get announced, and therefore tariffs come down from these headline rates, or new negotiations that happen over the course of the next week or so and get announced. In either case, I expect them to come lower, but boy, is it really important to figure out how much lower over the next 6 days, because if it's not substantial, there are some real shadows hovering over the economy.
Let's take a quick break here. When we come back, we'll do a little bit of trivia on the financial exchange.
There's only one show that follows Wall Street's continued volatility. Keep it here all morning long on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. New Englanders love the Caribbean, and now there's a Caribbean travel channel available for you to learn all about Caribbean culture while you're planning your next trip to your favorite island. The TravelShareIt.com marketplace is loaded with information about the arts, festivals, food, and music throughout the Caribbean, and is an interactive website featuring daily travel deals to any island of your choice. Book your next Caribbean vacation on the most comprehensive travel channel for the islands, TravelShareIt.com. That's TravelShareIt.com.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Retirement planning is complicated enough without having a formal budget to help you maintain your lifestyle during your later years. This is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Our new guide called How to Build a Retirement Budget was written specifically for this purpose. Our goal is to help take your financial concerns out of your retirement years. There are numerous issues to deal with when creating a retirement budget. Everything from understanding where your income will come from, to setting up a proper withdrawal strategy, to being able to remain flexible as market conditions change. This new guide offers structural guidance that may alleviate the pressures of creating your budget. You can request your copy right now by calling 800-393-4001 and ask for our new guide today. Once again, that number, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Beneficiary planning and asset protection go hand in hand. Cushing & Dolan has a new guide out called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries, and it can help make your planning process smooth and easy. Leaving your assets to your children isn't as simple as it sounds, especially if they have problems of their own. If you're retired or nearing retirement, it's time to consider the best way to keep your assets in your family while avoiding significant financial consequences down the road. Call Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and get their new guide called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. You'll learn which paths are the safest when it comes to protecting yourself and your children while avoiding unnecessary risks that can create substantial problems in the long run. That number again is 866-848-5699. Or you can request it online from our website, LegalExchangeShow.com. That's LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Let's talk LDL. AKA bad cholesterol. The higher your LDL cholesterol, the higher your risk of a heart attack or stroke. Your health matters. Know your number. Talk to your doctor and get your cholesterol checked. And learn how to help lower your LDL bad cholesterol. Because your health is in your hands. Find out more at heart.org/LDL.
Cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer of women,
taking the lives of 1 in 3.
That's more than all forms of cancer combined.
For too long, heart disease and stroke have taken the lives of the women we love.
But we're not giving up because we have something better,
stronger, more powerful.
We have each other.
When we come together and go red,
the more power we have against our greatest health threat.
Visit GoRedForWomen.org today to learn more.
The Financial Exchange is now available on your Alexa smart speaker. Ask to play the Financial Exchange and catch up on anything you might have missed. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
All right, time for trivia here on the Financial Exchange, and today is Eddie Murphy's 64th birthday. The comedy legend began as a stand-up comedian at the age of 17 and got his big break at the age of 19 when he joined Saturday Night Live. Trivia question today: how many times has Eddie Murphy hosted SNL? Once again, how many times has Eddie Murphy hosted SNL? Be the sixth person today to text us at 617-362-1385 with the correct answer, and you win a brand new Financial Exchange Show t-shirt. Once again, the sixth correct response to text us at 617-362-1385 will get that t-shirt. See complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
Taking a look at markets, Dow still off 1,442 points, S&P down 232, NASDAQ down 934, so about a 3.5% to 5.5% drop across the major indices. Russell 2000 also down about 6.5%, so it's pretty gross out there. 10-year Treasury, big move down in yields. You might say, okay, what's the 10-year telling us here? It's basically saying, hey, if these policies are enacted, it's going to slow growth to the point where we expect the next 10 years to be a lower growth environment than previously anticipated. And so you've got rates coming down on that front to 4.029%, down 16 basis points. Oil, we mentioned OPEC Plus is accelerating their plans for more production. So oil, West Texas Intermediate down $5.47 a barrel to $66.24. If you're seeing 7% daily swings in pricing, that's not really the environment that U.S. producers want to say, hey, let's try to drill a little bit more. They get nervous, when they see these kinds of things. And you've got gold down $25 an ounce, which sounds like a big chunk, but it was actually down 80 earlier in the day. So gold having a little bit of an intraday rally, but still down overall here. So, again, you got a pretty big sell-off going on. Where is it concentrated? Take a look at the worst performers in the S&P 500 on a percentage basis. I'm sorry, if you are anything related to apparel or
technology products, hardware.
Yes, you are getting absolutely crushed. Ralph Lauren down 17%. Deckers down 16%. Best Buy down 15%.
Garmin
Seagate
down 16.5%. A local employer around here, Dell Technologies, employs about 5,000 Massachusetts people, down 16% in early trading.
Hasbro down 14%. You've got, let's see, who else is notable? Bath and Body Works down 13%. Micron Technology down 12, Nike down 12, Capital One down 12. You might be saying, hey, how does Capital One fit in there? Like, they're the first, financial in this group. Capital One serves the low-income customer predominantly. They are a credit card company that really focuses on those entry-level credit cards for people that don't have, the strongest credit. Those are going to be people that have the biggest disruptions based on the projected price increases of goods and things that they buy. So that's why you've got them as kind of the financial that's leading the way down.
Interesting one to me, Chuck. Walmart typically seen as a defensive stock, which I can understand, but obviously massive importer of goods from China, only down about 1.5% in early trading. I suppose there's also the grocery side of that business, which is not as affected by yesterday's announcements, but a smaller sell-off than I might have anticipated from Walmart so far this morning.
Who's up today? Coke, Pepsi, both up about 3%. You got Southern Company and Duke up a couple percentage points in the utility space. A few healthcare companies, United Health and Cigna. Health insurers up a couple percentage points. Again, it's still... Those health insurers, they always figure out ways to make money, don't they?
Yeah.
You've got T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T up a couple percent. So people trying to hide in the places that they think are... a little bit more recession-proof, but overall just a rough day in markets. And the thing that, again, I think I'm kind of skewed just by how gnarly March of 2020 got. Like you look at what we saw, and on March 16th of 2020, the S&P was down 12% almost. And so part of me, I look at like a 4% down day in the S&P, I'm like, it's bad, but it's not that bad. I'm colored by that a little bit.
It's not peak COVID bad, I guess. But that's not really our benchmark.
Look, a 4% down day is a meaningful move, and I totally get it if people are a little bit like, hey, I'm kind of freaked out by this. Like, I get that.
Yeah, I think there's two pieces to this. There's the recession risk, and hey, am I prepared for a downturn in employment if we get one? And then there's the more obvious one, which today is all about market moves and people's 401ks and unsure of what comes next. I think big picture, here's what I always go back to on days like this, Chuck. It's, have I thought of the question, what am I going to do if markets go through a big downturn like we are seeing right now, like we are in the midst of? The S&P's off 11.5% from its all-time highs, NASDAQ off more than 15% from its all-time highs. If you have thought through that process, if you have had those conversations with the person managing your money of, hey, am I prepared for a market sell-off of X degree? Assume that it gets worse before it gets better. And have I had those conversations either with myself as my own portfolio manager, as a self-manager, or with somebody else who's doing it for me? If so, then oftentimes the best thing to do can be nothing. If not, it's time to have those conversations. Am I financially prepared for a market sell-off? If we get beyond correction to bear market, worse, if we go into a recession, am I prepared for that financially from a personal finance standpoint? Is my portfolio prepared for that from a portfolio allocation standpoint? Those are the questions to be asking yourself, ideally yesterday, but if not yesterday, then today. If you have those questions, if you're not able to answer confidently, yes, I feel prepared for this type of event, give the folks at Armstrong a call. 800-393-4001. We're standby to take your call, talk you through it, sit down ideally, and answer those questions, or at least raise those questions. Once again, that number for the Armstrong Advisory Group, should you have questions, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Let's see. We got a jobs report tomorrow.
We do get a jobs report tomorrow. Do you want to go there, or do you want to go Canada and Mexico? Because I think that was one piece that hasn't gotten a lot of mention so far. Pretty notably absent, and potentially a win for Canada and Mexico, at least early on here, that there are no additional imposed tariffs on those two countries.
Are they still, one thing I haven't seen any clarification on, they're still getting the additional 10%?
I do believe
they weren't mentioned anywhere in here. Like, right. Let's see. Actually, no, hang on. They were mentioned at the bottom of the executive order here. So the stuff that is USMCA qualifying is still exempt from tariffs.
From even the 10, it appears.
Yep, and everything that isn't is subject to the 25%. And so, yeah, it's the stuff from Canada and Mexico is just still in place as
previously announced,
previously indicated.
And I have seen at least one announcement from Stellantis of a production freeze at a Canadian auto plant as those tariffs go into place today. Quick break. Matthew Gagnon from WGAN and the Chief Executive Officer of the Maine Policy Institute joining us next to talk tariffs.
Bringing the latest financial news straight to your radio every day. It's the Financial Exchange on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Consistently voted one of the top Caribbean destinations, the United States Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next vacation. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway, a long weekend with friends, or a family vacation, St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John have everything you need to enjoy that special time away from home. Take advantage of a variety of incredible promotions that are available right now. Go to visitusvi.com/promotions, where you'll find the details about all of these amazing experiences, including a stay at the Divi Carina Bay all-inclusive beach resort and casino on St. Croix. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Don't miss your chance to enjoy America's Caribbean paradise, the United States Virgin Islands. Head to visitusvi.com/promotions for more information and to book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com/promotions.
Did you outgrow your timeshare and now you want out? But you can't. You can't sell it, and you can't get out of the contract. Imagine trying to get out of your mortgage. That's what a timeshare is. You can't just call up the bank and say, I don't want to pay it anymore. But we may be able to help you do just that. Listen, a timeshare maybe for you once was a great thing, but now you don't use it much. And they are not easy to get rid of. Plus, you do have to pay for it every month. Qualified timeshare owners can get out of their contract legally and permanently without ruining your credit or even filing bankruptcy. And imagine no more mortgage payment or fees. Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline qualification line now. It's free to learn more.
800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. That's 800-455-7967. Paid for by Timeshare Defense.
It happens all over Massachusetts. In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
Hi, I'm Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV of Massachusetts provides thousands of hours of voluntary services at our VA medical centers and soldiers' homes and is the only DAV department in the country to lead a veterans housing initiative for both single veterans and those with families. These programs are critical to serving our veterans in their time of need. You can help our great American heroes by making a donation today. Please visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Hi, it's Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we have a guide available this month titled How to Build a Retirement Budget. Mike, one of the issues that we've seen for retirees in the last several years is significantly higher home insurance premiums and property taxes going up as well. How do people attempt to navigate this but still stay within the budget they had laid out for themselves?
Yeah, look, the cost of home ownership, I don't think this is a surprise to anyone. Whether you are buying a home for the first time or you are just seeing those insurance and tax rates that you mentioned going up, it is really impossible to avoid. And I think that's where that flexibility in the budget comes in and needs to be recognized. Because, for instance, you might have factored in a huge cost savings by moving to Florida a decade ago.
Sure.
A lot of that has been eaten up over the course of the last several years. And so you have to have a budget that can evolve with your lifestyle over time.
How often do you review that budget?
I think it's important to at least get a grasp on it once a year. And you can really see costs fluctuate a lot during those periods of time. But those flexibility points are really important because you have to account for inflation, and different things inflate at different rates. So, for example, you might see that your costs of healthcare rise dramatically in your later years, both because you need more of it and because healthcare costs inflate faster than other types of costs. And you have to build those into the budget, even though you might be paying nothing for them today.
This month, our guide is titled How to Build a Retirement Budget, and the way to request it is by calling 800-393-4001. The guide again is How to Build a Retirement Budget, and the number to call is 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Find daily interviews and full shows of the Financial Exchange on our YouTube page. Like us on YouTube and get caught up on anything and everything you might have missed. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
All right, trivia question today was, how many times has Eddie Murphy hosted SNL? That'll be 3 times. Tom from Algonquin, Maine is our winner today, taking home a brand new Financial Exchange Show t-shirt. Congrats to Tom, and we play trivia every day here on the Financial Exchange. See complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
Joining us now is Matthew Gagnon. He is the host of the morning show on Portland's talk show WGAN, talk station WGAN, and is the chief executive of the Maine Policy Institute. Matt, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure, guys. Thanks for inviting me.
So, obvious, if anyone was under a rock for the last 24, more like 72 hours, they may have missed it, but tariffs implemented yesterday, probably some negotiations coming over the next 6 days. Matt, when you are thinking about all of this, and let's hone in here on New England or Maine specifically, what are you looking at in regard to these tariffs and the potential impact more locally here in the New England region?
Well, that's an excellent question. I mean, there's a lot of history here, obviously, in New England. And when you're talking about the manufacturing base, which is what Trump is really targeting with a lot of these tariffs, he's attempting to create an environment where American jobs, American manufacturing, and the middle class, et cetera, can grow. This is an area where we've been particularly hit hard. Papermaking in the state of Maine, for instance, was a place that was really where a lot of those jobs existed in the past, and now they're gone. And so when you're looking at the effect of these tariffs for people here, I think that's going to be one measurement, one barometer for them on whether or not they're successful. If they stay in place and if they continue for a while and jobs come back, more manufacturing happens, you start to see some of those jobs return, then I think that they'll view it as a success. If, on the other hand, they don't, and you see rising prices, you see the stock market in trouble, you see jobs kind of hover or decline, the economy contract, a recession, lots of those types of things, you're going to probably see people turn on them very quickly here. So it's a little bit of a wait-and-see attitude, which I think you're seeing everywhere in the country right now.
Demographics being what they are in New England, Maine being the oldest state in the country, for example, what does the possibility of really bringing jobs back to this region look like, right? You talk about manufacturing in New England, whether it's in Manchester, New Hampshire, I forget the name of the building that goes along the river there for quite a ways, that's been shut down as a manufacturing facility for something like 100 years. What does the possibility of manufacturing in New England look like again in your mind?
That's a difficult question to answer because I think that a lot of this is very dependent on how the other countries react.
Yeah.
And what ultimately happens with the tariff rates in a variety of different industries. The big one for us in Maine is papermaking and the Canadians, right? So a lot of these conflicts in the early part of the Trump administration have circulated around Canada and Mexico, a little bit of China as well. I know that these tariffs are universal, or at least the broad-based 10% one is. Yes. I know that the reciprocal tariffs obviously are individualized to each country, but Canada has been at the centerpiece of all this. And if that ends up having a trade war start where they're raising tariffs in response to ours, and then we do the same to try to continue the game a little bit, to me, I don't really see a lot of opportunity for manufacturing to come back here. Ultimately, what you really would need to have happen is the Canadians to drop theirs and provide a material advantage for producing in the United States. And I'm not sure, especially with the rhetoric that's coming out of the new prime minister's mouth in Canada, I'm not sure you're likely to see that. So it would, if it does happen, it's going to take a long time. I mean, it's not something that you're going to see major investments by companies in this week, next week, because a lot of them are very nervous and unsure about exactly what the policy will be in the course of the next several weeks and months. And you can't make long-term investment decisions like that.
Speaking of which, Prime Minister Mark Carney is addressing somebody right now as we speak, holding a press conference, presumably in reaction to yesterday's announcement. So we will cover that later on today or tomorrow. Bigger picture here, Matt, to get a little bit into politics or your read there. Forget about the White House for a moment. Elected representatives, senators, what are we hearing in terms of reaction there, and what's been the mood that you've been able to tell on Capitol Hill from those elected representatives from either side of the aisle?
Well, there's been a little mini rebellion in the Republican Party. You have people like Rand Paul out there, obviously our senator in Maine, Susan Collins, who have been seeking in the Canadian example to try to take some action there, but you're likely to see additional actions in reaction to what he did yesterday. I think that is a very small and limited group, though, at this time. So whether or not that's going to grow at all is anybody's guess, I suppose. It is sort of fascinating, though, from a political history standpoint. If you read your history, this is a return to a very old brand of Republican politics. So this is like 19th century Republican, early 20th century Republican. And the Democrats for the better part of the 20th century were the ones that were in trade protectionism and trying to help labor unions and workers and whatnot for a long time. So this is a bit of a reversal. And it's been interesting to watch a lot of the U.S. senators that were elected in a different time, maybe as free traders, shift and morph along with this populist nationalist movement that's grown in the Republican Party and kind of bend the knee to it. I mean, they're all about supporting the president on this, while only a handful of them have defected. So I think that the real question, guys, will be as the economic effects of this start to take hold, if you see a recession, if you see rising prices, if you see a lot of the negative things, do those people that are kind of with the president right now in his own party stay there, or do they begin to rebel and revolt a little bit? I don't know the answer to that question yet, but I do know that the loyalty that he has right now is pretty strong.
Any other big takeaways or surprises that you got from either markets today or yesterday's announcements that just you're not seeing played out there as you expected over the course of today and yesterday after the announcements?
This is exactly what I expected, honestly. I mean, a little bit of it was dependent on what exactly he announced. I know that there was talk of both the universal broad-based tariffs as well as the reciprocal tariffs, and he did both, which is interesting. So the scope of what he did is, I suppose, mildly surprising. He did campaign on this, but nobody knew what the specifics were, really, about exactly what he was going to do, and now we're starting to get a sense of that. The market reaction to it is not at all surprising. That's something that would be one of the most predictable things you could have imagined. When you're doing this kind of thing, there are definite effects that will absolutely happen. Trade will decline. Prices will rise. Certainty in a lot of these investments will be a great deal less. And because of that, there's a lot of hesitancy from people that are going to be investing in the market to do so because they don't really know exactly what to do. And they are a little bit pessimistic now that if they're investing in a company that had access to foreign markets and suddenly they won't, what's that going to mean for their bottom line? I don't know. So I'm not going to invest today. So this is very unsurprising and will likely continue. But long term, the question is, how long does it stay? How long do these tariffs stay? And how do markets react when things do change?
Matthew Gagnon is the host of Portland's largest talk radio station, The Morning Show on WGAN, is also the chief executive of the Maine Policy Institute, and joined us today to talk about the implementation of new tariffs from the Trump administration. Thank you, Matt.
Pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be doing Sack Roulette. My guess is that a lot of the stories are going to be about tariffs. Quick break. We'll be back with that next here on the Financial Exchange.
The Financial Exchange streams live on YouTube. Like our page and stay up to date on breaking business news all morning long. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Retirement planning is complicated enough without having a formal budget to help you maintain your lifestyle during your later years. This is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Our new guide called How to Build a Retirement Budget was written specifically for this purpose. Our goal is to help take your financial concerns out of your retirement years. There are numerous issues to deal with when creating a retirement budget. Everything from understanding where your income will come from, to setting up a proper withdrawal strategy, to being able to remain flexible as market conditions change. This new guide offers structural guidance that may alleviate the pressures of creating your budget. You can request your copy right now by calling 800-393-4001 and ask for our new guide today. Once again, that number, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. It's easy to say that you're simply leaving your assets to your children, but without proper beneficiary planning, it can cause significant problems. Call Cushing & Dolan at 866-848-5699 and get their new guide called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. Don't leave your future or your children's future to chance. Call 866-848-5699 or request it online from our website, legalexchangeshow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Consistently voted one of the top Caribbean destinations, the United States Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next vacation. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway, a long weekend with friends, or a family vacation, St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John have everything you need to enjoy that special time away from home. Take advantage of a variety of incredible promotions that are available right now. Go to visitusvi.com/promotions, where you'll find the details about all of these amazing experiences, including a stay at the Divi Carina Bay all-inclusive beach resort and casino on St. Croix. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Don't miss your chance to enjoy America's Caribbean paradise, the United States Virgin Islands. Head to visitusvi.com/promotions for more information and to book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com/promotions.
As a busy mom to 4 kids, my to-do list is full.
Trying to fit in exercise, eating right, and prioritizing self-care can feel next to impossible.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has easy tips, tools, and information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
So to all the moms, the aunts, grandmothers, and amazing women out there doing it all,
visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
You take care of them, Go Red for Women will take care of you.
Heads up, athletes, coaches, and parents. Play for life, not just points. Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, or HCM, is the leading cause of sudden cardiac death, especially in black athletes in sports like football or basketball. If you feel shortness of breath, chest pain, and fatigue, or have a family history of HCM, talk to your doctor. Don't let HCM bend you for good. Learn how to stay in the game at heart.org/HCM student athlete. Your heart, your health, your move.
The Financial Exchange Show podcast drops every day on Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Hit that subscribe button and leave us a 5-star review. You're listening to the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
This segment of the Financial Exchange is brought to you in part by the U.S. Virgin Islands Department of Tourism. The U.S. Virgin Islands are St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John, and they are the perfect place to take your next vacation. Enjoy spectacular beaches, world-class cuisine, and a wide variety of water sports. Don't miss your chance to visit America's Caribbean paradise, the United States Virgin Islands. Go to visitusvi.com for more information and to book your trip today. That's visit usvi.com.
Mike, what do you got for me for Stack Roulette?
Let's go to jobs. We've got a few things going on here. We did get the weekly jobs report this morning. It was fine. No big increases in filings for unemployment. However, furloughs in the federal government totaled 216,215 for the month of March, a total of 275,000 in terms of reductions in the overall labor force. That is according to data from Challenger, Gray, and Christmas, who does their own tallies of this. That total, that 275,000, was surpassed only by April and May of 2020, which, if you recall, those were not great days for employment or layoffs. So these appear to be coming. These also appear to have occurred prior to any announcement on tariffs, so not tariff-related, mostly government job cut-related. And we will see if this starts showing up in tomorrow's jobs report, which does measure employment for the month of March. That comes out tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. Just something I've been thinking about here locally, right? I mean, we in the New England region are not home to big manufacturers, for example, that are likely to benefit in the short term from jobs coming back to the United States. Instead, biggest employers in the New England area, you think about companies like Partners Healthcare, Mass General Hospital, Brigham and Women's, Raytheon is a big one as well. But these large employers who are heavily reliant, they all seem to have one thing in common to me, whether it's Harvard University, UMass, UMaine, the health systems across New England, or even Raytheon, they all rely very heavily on government funding. Yep. If one of the things that we think is a theme developing over the next couple of years here are dramatic cuts to both government employment and government-funded studies, government-funded research, then New England might fare a lot differently than they have during the last previous recessions, both in terms of employment, real estate, etc.
Yeah, I think that's entirely fair and something that we have to be aware of, and that how this cycle could be different from prior ones. I want to talk about, with all this hype, we touched on it briefly at the end of yesterday's show, but we've got an April 5th deadline for TikTok to either be sold or shut down. Now, they could obviously extend that. There's already been one extension that the Trump administration has granted, but we've got more bids that have come in. We covered Amazon's briefly at the end of yesterday's show, and AppLovin, who I'm sure none of us are, really that familiar with because, quite honestly, they didn't really exist as a publicly traded company before. I'm trying to see when they even went public. Let's see. Oh, longer than you'd think. 2021, but They were basically a non-factor in markets until the very end of last year, and now they've been the target of short sellers in the last couple of days, but they are trying to potentially buy TikTok as well. But we are getting close to TikTok Day yet again, and I got to tell you,
really close, like 2 days from now.
Yeah, the New York Times was, I think, the first to report on the Amazon one, and they said that according to people familiar with the deal, TikTok was not interested in the Amazon offer. Now, I don't know if that's because of the price it was at or what this or that, but I did think it made a ton of sense for Amazon, as much as I might not like it from a personal perspective, in that, hey, if you've got a whole bunch of influencers selling stuff on TikTok and, hey, click on this and here's the direct link to buy in the app using your Amazon account.
Yeah.
Golly gee willikers, that sounds like a pretty good deal for Amazon, even though I find it to be pretty anti-competitive in this and that, but neither here nor there. So that was interesting to me. I'm also kind of curious, hey, given the state of play in geopolitics and questions about the state of the economy, who really wants to commit to a bid for TikTok right now? Right?
Fair question. Yeah, I mean...
how do you know how much to pay?
Probably eliminates a few companies off of that list just in terms of what their future earnings look like. Obviously, Oracle was the front runner here, and it seems like Ellison? Is that
yeah, Larry Ellison.
Yeah, Larry Ellison has been trying to push this for quite some time. The latest that I heard was an idea to lease the basically lease the IP from TikTok, from ByteDance rather, in terms of the algorithms in there, rather than whoever owns this, they would own the app. Presumably, they would own the flow of data in terms of the app users in the United States, but they would not own the actual intellectual property of the algorithm. So in my mind, if this deal can't be made, right, like you're saying here, maybe the U.S. blocks that, but if you're saying here that, hey, we are going to allow China to still own the algorithm and own the intellectual property of that, and we are just going to pay a big old price to keep this stuff here, keep the advertising revenue and everything like that. If that deal can't get approved by the Chinese, then it tells you one very clear thing. They have no intention of making a deal because the reason that this exists is to be able to collect data on Americans. Right? Yeah. I just don't think there's any other interpretation there. If that is the deal they end up getting offered, hey, you can still have the IP, you can still have the algorithm, nobody's going to be able to rip it off, but we get all the data, well then, what they want in that case is the data if they can't make that deal work.
Yeah. What else you got for me, Mike?
Stagflation keeps getting printed. Is it actually something for us to worry about? So first of all, what is stagflation? It is the
Jay Powell famously said, "I can see the stag, but not the I see the inflation, but I'm not seeing the stag."
Yes, he was not looking for what is a stag? A horse with a no, that's a unicorn.
Male deer.
Oh, okay. So to get stagflation, you need two things occurring at once. You need a recession, a slowdown in economic activity, usually paired with higher unemployment. You also need high inflation. We saw it during the 1970s. That was really the only time in modern U.S. history where you have actually experienced stagflation. It's getting reported on more and more here because every time there's an economic slowdown or some semblance of inflation, it gets printed on. It was printed on in 2022. It didn't happen. Do we actually feel there is a long-term risk of stagflation right now, Chuck?
How do we define long-term?
I mean, what was the 70s experience? 5-10 years of, on again, off again stagflation?
So I would say no. And the reason that I say no is based on what we are seeing in terms of inflation swaps in that market, where you're seeing them being bid up significantly in the next 1 year, but the 2 to 3 year inflation swaps are falling. So basically, here's what that market is telling you. It's telling you there's going to be some higher inflation over the next year or so, but the damage caused by that inflation is going to slow the U.S. economy to the point where you might have a recession and inflation is not a major concern the next couple of years.
Yep.
So you could have the inflation and then the stag is kind of what it's saying, but not necessarily to expect them both at once. You might have a short period. I mean, look, if this year develops the worst way that it could, yeah, it's absolutely possible. It's definitely possible. Is it something that is the most likely? Not really, because generally it's really hard for inflation to maintain a hold once any kind of slowdown happens. It did happen in the 70s, but even that, it was something where inflation was high, but it didn't stay high the entire time. It varied over the course. It was a double peak that you saw. So it's what I can tell you is that if these tariffs all stay in place, there's the potential for some very, very negative economic consequences in the form of higher prices and lower growth in the short term. Is it all worth it at the end? I got no idea. I'm trying to see to next Tuesday right now. Not what things look like 5, 6, 7 years from now. So we're going to have to see. We're going to take a break for the rest of the day. Back at it tomorrow. We do have a Jobs Friday. We'll be talking that and more on tariffs tomorrow. Tune in. We'll see you then.
Consistently voted one of the top Caribbean destinations, the United States Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next vacation. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway, a long weekend,